your why will impact burnout or not. Let's talk about it today. Welcome to Decision Points. I'm Doug Hudson.
I'm Scott Wood.
And welcome Emily Barahona. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Of course, you're the founder of 2 branding agencies. You serve and act as the chief branding officer for your clients. What does that mean?
Well, I help my clients establish their brand, figure out their brand identity, and then obviously knowing who they are now, they're able to authentically live and actually breathe and be who they are as a company. So we help them cultivate their culture and then take care of the brand and protect the brand and maintain the brand into the future.
Awesome. We got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah. Are you going to turn this into personal coaching?
I might. Culture's really important to us. But before we go there, where are you today?
I'm in Manhattan today.
Okay.
For now.
Awesome.
I'm temporarily in Manhattan. I'll be moving to the Jersey Shore in about a month.
Oh, well, that sounds amazing.
Like permanently moving to the Jersey Shore?
That's the idea.
Okay.
I actually moved back to the States last year after living in Ecuador for a decade.
Oh, wow.
And managed my agencies from there and had to move back last year. And my family, my sisters live in New York City. So that's why I'm here.
Great.
So I can be close to family.
So we got a little intel from your Instagram account that said you're a surfer.
Yeah.
So did you start surfing in Ecuador, or were you a surfer before you went to Ecuador?
In Ecuador, we were building a meditation center, a retreat center right there on the beach. And the beach that we happened to live on was a surfing beach. It was not really a swimmable beach. It was a dangerous beach, but it was a surfing beach. And so my kids and I could just walk down to the water and meet our instructor and take classes. And it was great. I miss it.
That sounds amazing.
Well, go ahead and tell her that you call yourself a surfer.
Well, I kind of call myself a surfer. I mean, you can't really be a surfer and live in Dallas. It's very, like there's no surfing in Dallas. You have to go somewhere else. So I surf a few days a year, but I do have a love for surfing.
How many kids do you have, and how many of them are surfing at this point?
I have 4, and 3 of them surf.
Incredible.
My baby hasn't learned yet.
What are their ages, Emily?
16 is my oldest, my son, and then my 2 girls, 12 and 10, and then my baby 7, my boy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's the only one that was born in Ecuador. The rest were born in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Oh, wow. All right. Mm-hmm. Well, let's get into it. So where are you from? Walk us through some of your personal journey.
Sure. Well, I've kind of been all over the place. We moved a lot when I was a kid until we got settled in a suburb outside of Cleveland, Ohio. But my dad grew up there. My mom's from Cuba. So hence the Miami and the Ecuador connection and my whole team being in South America. I had that. I grew up speaking the language and with the culture. And so when I did make the switch to moving into the Southern Hemisphere, it actually wasn't too much of a culture shock. It actually was nice. It kind of was a culture shock coming back.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, you're going through more transition now than you went through younger, right?
Yeah, definitely the most transition I've probably ever gone through at the same time. I'm a single mom raising 4 kids who I also homeschool while managing my agencies and doing that while being nomads because we haven't permanently moved anywhere yet.
Yeah.
We've been staying in different places for the last year and a half. Has been a year and a half of transition. So I'm looking forward to kind of planting roots and getting settled in one place for a while.
Well, Emily, thank you for the time. And I hope that this conversation can help go wherever you want to go, but just the talent, the aptitude, all that you're juggling at the same time. We recorded a podcast with one of your clients, Irfan Lalani, the CEO of Vibe, and he just speaks of your team's incredible work and talent, and here you are juggling all these things. So thank you for fitting us in. Where did your mom and dad meet? How did we get Ohio, Miami, Cuba? Where'd they meet?
My mom ended up growing up in Puerto Rico after she had to leave Cuba. And she was a valedictorian, and she got a scholarship to Cornell University, where she met my dad, who was also there. And then it was kind of expected that their first baby would be going to Cornell. They took us every single fall to sail and to go to the apple orchards and go to the homecoming football game and just kind of experience it because they loved it. It was where they met. And here we are. That's actually also where I met Irfan.
Well, that's what I hear. So, you knew, so it's you and your sister?
Yeah, I have two younger sisters.
Two younger sisters. All right.
Did they go to Cornell?
No, because I did it. They didn't, the expectation had been met. So they had the freedom to do whatever they wanted.
I see.
And I actually ended up in the UNC area because my sister went to UNC. My high school sweetheart went to Duke. So I spent most of my college years down in the rivalry territory between Duke and UNC for all the basketball games, which was kind of fun. She had a full ride to UNC, and then my other sister got a full ride to Cooper Union here in New York City, which is how we all ended up in New York City.
You guys are really struggling on the brain department, I can tell. So,
yeah.
Are your mom and dad still with us?
Sadly, my dad passed away in 2010.
Okay.
But my mom she actually just found out last week that she's in remission from her leukemia.
That's huge.
So that's exciting.
Yeah.
She's here with her 3 girls.
So is she in New York or Jersey?
Yeah, she's visiting right now.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, but she lives in Miami, as do all of the other Cuban members of our family.
So if there's a basketball game on right now, who are you pulling for?
Well, I have to say, I am not, I have kind of, ever since I went to South America, I've lost my touch with most sports besides surfing.
All right. So
I was actually a Duke fan. I was not UNC, but that's because I was on my boyfriend's side.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So I got to ask, is your place in the Jersey Shore where you guys are about to move, is it proximal to a surf break?
Of course. Absolutely.
Yes. Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, that
So
was
it
a
sounds
requirement
like
in the
I bet it was.
So it sounds like maybe Irfan and maybe Faisal, his brother, those who may not know the family, Scott and I, it sounds like we may need to take a road trip and learn more about the culture agency, why we surf some. So we'll put that on the calendar.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, so tell us about Cornell. What are you studying? What are your early career aspirations? Yeah, what are some of those journey and milestones look like for you?
Yeah, I've always been inclined to design. At the time, it was more sort of architecture, interior design, and then I got kind of pulled into hospitality. And I think that I thought that I was going to, I don't know, initially I was considering the back of house, the food side, and realized that no, I'm not supposed to be there. What I liked was plating and making it look beautiful and the creativity. But what I really discovered was that what I really loved about the whole experience of the hospitality industry was, just that. It's the experience. It's the 3D experience. It's coming in. It's the interior design. It is the brand and how that comes to life and all the parts and pieces. And so I ended up majoring in design and development and took a lot of classes in the architecture school and in the design school in human ecology, that part of Cornell. And spent so much time in the studio and ended up actually graduating, even though my minor was in marketing, graduating and working in architecture firms when I left Cornell.
Yep.
Hoping to do restaurants and hotels, ended up doing everything else. So hospitals and schools and churches, and I wasn't really designing what I loved, that hospitality experience. I was in Indianapolis at the time when I graduated because my high school sweetheart was working for Eli Lilly. And so we started out there, and I realized that I really wasn't an indie fan, and I needed a little more diversity, a little more excitement and decided to get back into hospitality. And I left the architecture world and thought this would be my foot in the door, and started designing events, and realized that there's this really beautiful need for a designer to be able to not only design a brand, but also design the 3D environment and the event, because all of those three things need to be connected. Mm-hmm. So I had a studio called E3 Studios where I was designing all of those three things, and worked in a hotel for a while in marketing. And then that's when I really made the switch into branding and totally transitioned from hospitality and from design, and sort of melded the two things, design and marketing. And that's graphic design. So I filled in all the gaps, things that I hadn't been trained in, and that was it. I mean, I felt very connected to supporting people in identity, and identity was really what gave me purpose, and the reason why I'm still doing what I'm doing and still feel fulfilled doing it, because I felt that was really my purpose, was to help people find their purpose.
So in Indy, this A3 studio, was that yours? Was that another organization? You go ahead.
Studios, yeah. That was mine for a short time.
And was that in Indy, or did you move somewhere else to start that?
Yeah, so I left Indy, and yeah, that's the part I didn't share. I moved back to the Chapel Hill area.
Okay.
Because considering going to grad school, my high school sweetheart at the time, who ended up decided he also was going to possibly continue on with his education and UNC as well for grad school. We decided to move there, and then I just stayed and got a job in hospitality, and the rest is history. That's how the sort of light bulb went off for me to realize that branding and identity is really what I loved. And I do apply that still to the same industry, but I also have pursued other industries as well.
Who was your first client at A3? What did you do for your first client?
E3.
What's that?
E3.
E3?
Mm-hmm. E3, like Emily.
Thank you. I said it wrong a couple of times. Who was your first client at E3? What were the first couple of projects? What were you doing?
Good question. So I did do a lot of events. Not everyone was doing all three of them, which was what I wanted to do. I did design certain people's spaces, offices, homes, and I did marketing a lot of, at the time, though I had this vision for what I wanted it to be. At the time, I was doing kind of a little bit of all three things separated, and not really doing it for one company, one brand. And so when I had the opportunity to go work in marketing and get the experience working in marketing officially, when I worked in this hotel, and really kind of had the light bulb moment that branding was really what I wanted to do, I then was pursuing clients where I could little by little help support them in all three areas, which is what we're doing now.
So remind us again what the three areas are: brand, obviously, and then the event itself, and then what's the third?
The interior architecture.
Okay.
Yeah, the actual environment that the business is in. Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Yeah. Because they really all should be connected. They really are, in totality, when you go to experience an event, or you're in a space, an office, or whatever it is, or you're going to their website, all three need to be, oozing the brand messaging and the identity and consistently. And I think it makes sense that more agencies would support and guide in all three areas.
So talk to us about you're the founder of two agencies now. One is the Culture Agency, and what is the other one?
The Freeman Network. Actually was the first one. It was Freeman Network.
Okay. Tell us about, walk us through a case study, Emily. Let's take Irfan and Vibe. When did you start engaging with them and providing services? What does that look like today? Walk us through a case study of you really pulling all of these pieces together.
Sure. When you're an entrepreneur and you're starting an agency or any business, you'll kind of take anyone and be anyone for anyone, right? And do all things. And so I didn't have a niche specialty in terms of industry at the time. I did have a niche in terms of service, which was branding. But we did not really discover the specialty that we had in QSR and casual dining until a little bit later. I have actually, from the very beginning of Freebie Network, I had Emerge, one of our largest clients, and I had Vibe, and absolutely loved working with them because I loved their culture. And I really felt that I only wanted to work in that industry if I were working with people who also believed in what I believed in terms of culture and taking care of their people and having a human-centered, people-centric culture. It's actually not as easy to come by as you think, even though you would think that in QSR that needs to be the most important part of the business are the people, because that's how you're going to be able to scale is when you're taking care of people and everyone loves what they're doing. That's when you're able to actually scale the business. So I discovered, though, that that's what I really loved about QSR and casual dining, because I had this experience with Vibe and with Emerge. Because for a time, I was trying to decide if I was going to continue in that industry, because it didn't really align with me as a human being and my lifestyle. What I really love is personal development and holistic wellness. I'm a vegan, so I don't support the end consumer product. But I really, really, really care about the workforce. And so it was important to me not to abandon the workforce and to support that workforce of minorities and immigrants and teenagers, and continue to see the results that were coming from cultivating a culture where they're taken care of and they're given resources and training and support. And it was beautiful to see how that was really coming to life in these companies. And so I thought, you know what, I think we had all sorts of clients and industries at the time for Freebie Network. I hadn't made the connection that my niche for Freebie Network was really personal development and holistic wellness, which is what aligns with me, which is what I was doing in Ecuador. I was building a meditation center. But I hadn't made that connection yet. And then I decided, you know what? I don't think I'm going to get rid of these clients. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin them out. So I'm going to spin out my QSR clients into a separate agency with a separate team. Since we do specialize in this, we provide a service that there's a serious need for. Let's continue doing it, but let's not associate it with Freebie Network, which is now going to focus on holistic wellness and personal development, which aligned with what I was doing. So we did continue, and it was actually the right decision because it just took off. The culture agency, it's officially, we've been working with these clients since 2018, but we officially made that switch in January of last year. And since we've done that, it's just been kind of taking off because it really is meeting a need that these groups really need.
Well, it makes so much sense. Obviously, your services, your expertise, the culture now lines up. Yeah, they are completely separate brand stories, and makes sense.
I got a question.
Go, because I got a bunch too.
Okay, so Emily, so I think Vibe is like a really good case study, because if you think of Vibe, it's Wingstop, Whataburger, and Little Caesars Pizza, right? And those all have three very distinctive brands. And so when I think about a brand, I tend to think about the Wingstop brand more than now that I know more, obviously I'm aware of the Vibe brand, but how do you come into an organization where there are already three distinctive brands with their own personality, but then create, this brand that is Vibe that stands independent of these other three very strong, very well-known brands in the marketplace?
Sure. Well, it's necessary to establish a brand that is like the umbrella company, the management company that's going to, sorry for all the sirens.
Hey, I'm going to interject. This is amazing. This is the background noise of Manhattan, correct?
Yeah.
And
yes, exactly.
We had a great conversation yesterday. The lady actually lives in LA, but she's from New York, grew up at 80 Upper East Side. And I said, describe a New Yorker. And she says, well, the first thing about us is we interrupt each other. So now we have interruption and we have background car noise. So it's perfect.
It's perfect. And I'm in the same area where she was. I'm a block from Central Park, close to Mount Sinai. So you always hear sirens because Mount Sinai is a block away. So, So for restaurant groups, it's crucial absolutely crucial, that they establish their own brand for the parent company that is managing all of their brand partners. So they're not just aligning their brand or their style of leadership or management with just one. They're establishing what theirs is, their unique approach, and then they're applying it to all of their brand partners, right? And this is crucial because you don't want to, and you wouldn't want to hire a leader to create their own culture for one that they're managing, and then have another leader who's managing, the other brand with their own culture, and the third one with their, because then there's no congruency, there's no ability for you to now as a team across the country, across the units, across the brands, have the ability to scale because you're all doing different things and you all have different identities. But if you are all coming in under Vibe's identity, for example, and you're all coming in with the same vision, the same mission, the same energy and excitement in leadership, the same core values, which are the how of living an identity, a brand identity, then now, because everyone's seeing things the same way, everyone loves their job in the same way because they're all experiencing the same thing, now you can scale it and you can duplicate it over and over again if it is officially packaged and it is intentionally trained at every single step of the life cycle of the employee. Now, if it's just intrinsically known and we have a culture, and this is very common, many restaurant groups, they have a culture and they intrinsically know their culture and they keep on doing it and repeating it, but it's not really officially packaged in a way that they can train it and duplicate it over and over again so they can scale. And so that's the reason why a restaurant group absolutely has to create their own brand to then be able to manage all of their brand partners in a consistent way, so they can scale the business.
So let me ask a follow-up question on that. I'm not in that business, so I know enough to be dangerous. But I'm sure Wingstop has a formula and a blueprint on how all of the stores are supposed to look, and all very specific to be consistent with the Wingstop brand. How do you begin to introduce concepts for the Vibe brand inside those stores or locations that begin to create separation between what's Wingstop and what's Vibe?
The standards that are set by the brand, so Wingstop, for example, are going to be operational. There will be some culture in terms of it. This is how we handle customer service, is how we're going to treat each other. And we will do our best when we create the culture and the core values for the restaurant group to align it. And of course, I think that when they chose those brand partners, they also were considering, who do I align with, right? So we just make sure that we see, okay, can we align our culture with theirs? But what's really driving the experience of what it is to work at a Wingstop or at a Little Caesars or at any of these QSR concepts is the operations, are the standards of the product. What is not necessarily controlled by those brand partners is how management is taking care of the people, is training them, is loving on them, is recognizing them, is creating this culture. And so that is what the management company needs to do. They need to establish that. How are we going to take care of our people? And that really doesn't come from corporate, doesn't come from the franchisor, it comes from the franchisee. And so they need to establish that. And if you don't do it officially, yes, you may do something somewhat consistently across the board, but it's not going to be to the point where anyone should be able to walk into any one of their stores and go to the entry-level employee who's at the register and say, what are the core values of the company? And if you're doing a good job cultivating the culture and helping them to understand their brand and live it, every single employee should be able to answer that question correctly.
It's interesting. You've said it a couple times, Emily. I keep hearing from you, you're a designer, you're a branding, you're hospitality. What I can tell in your DNA at the culture agency, it all is focused on the person. Is that,
exactly.
Where's that come from? Why?
Well, it's focused on the person, but it has to start with the ultimate leader, right? So when we meet to establish this, we need to listen to the heart of the founder. And the reason why it has to start at the top And of course, they're not the ones who are involved making it happen day in and day out, but they're the visionaries. They're the inspiration. When you think about a vision statement and a mission statement, the why aligns with the vision. It is that destination off in the horizon that the captain is looking at and inspired to get to, and pointing everyone in that direction. The mission every single day, the what we do every day to make that possible, to reach that goal, is what the crew is having to do every single day. And so that visionary, that leader, has to be inspired, has to be energized to the point where he can maintain that energy so it's sustainable. And if he really believes in what he's doing, and he's hiring people who believe, and you're training people to believe in what you believe in, now it's much easier to maintain the energy and inspiration for everyone else below you so that you can sustainably continue to grow. And so the very beginning, the first phase of the process of establishing a brand and a culture is crucial, because you have to be extremely intentional to create something that not only will consistently and continuously inspire and keep the top leader and all of the leaders below him energized, but then also something that the rest of the people, the 95% of the rest of the workforce of the company, will also connect with. It will resonate with them. So that's very important, that first phase, because that's what we have to establish that. And then once we have the foundation, we can now cultivate and scale.
I'd love to know, what are the core values of the culture agency?
That's a really good question. And I actually do have them. They're not going to be something that will make sense a lot to you guys. We do everything in Spanish. But some of ours are very much centered around accepting that we're humans and we can all make mistakes, and just taking ownership. Another one is always wanting to continue to grow, having a growth mindset and wanting to learn. And it's funny because I'm noticing that a lot of our core values that we live by end up kind of making their way into the core values of a lot of our of our clients. But it's interesting because these are things that really are powerful in any industry. You do have to be specific when you're planning them, because you have to think, okay, what kind of behaviors do I want to create? And so when we did plan ours, we were thinking, okay, what is not acceptable? What's acceptable? What kind of behaviors do we want? One of our absolutely most important ones is that you can never abandon the team. That teamwork is the ultimate most important thing. That the team is first. Team is number one. That we always put team first. And certain things in terms of how you handle and treat your team are just not acceptable. And so the core values become the filter for your behaviors, for your decisions, for everything. And so, but our number one core value is all centered on teamwork and always being what we say, manos a la obra, which is all hands on deck and supporting each other when we need to, and never abandoning anyone on the team. It's interesting. When we guide our clients, we're always making sure that they're thinking intentionally, okay, what kind of employee do you want? How do you want them to behave? What are your goals in terms of what you want them to accomplish? So now let's work backwards and let's think, what are the core values? What are the character, the qualities that you want them to embody so that they can then help you to reach those goals?
It's incredible. The bulk of our audience are business owners. A lot of them family-owned businesses, but they're business owners. I'd love to do a little exercise here. I'm a business owner. I'm listening to the podcast. I've gone and researched Earfon and Vibe Restaurants and see, oh, wow, that's a big organization, culture agency, and Emily work with them. If someone called you and said, Emily, I would like to have a meeting with you, walk us through how you would take that first meeting. How are you gonna evaluate that business owner to see if they're a fit for what you do and provide?
Sure. I'm actually very upfront with it at the very beginning of the meeting. I do my due diligence before we even jump into a discovery call. And I try to see if I can find out online first before we actually jump in the meeting. Do they align with what we believe in? If they are not human-centered, and I can't always tell that until the meeting, But if I can, or if someone has referred someone to me, I always ask the person who's referring, now, do you know if this person that you're referring to me, how they approach and take care of their people, and if that's a priority for them? And if they say, oh no, he only cares about the profit, and then I say, then I'd rather not have the meeting. Then if we do move on to the meeting, I'm very upfront at the very beginning to make sure that because I'm going to be very sort of selective, and I make sure that they align with our values. And if we see that we're aligned, that we have the same mission, that we really do want to build a long-term thing, because we're in it for the long term. We want to build a long-term relationship, because cultivating culture takes time. It is a partnership. Like, our team joins your team, and we're in it for the long haul. So if we are going to be connected, we have to absolutely be aligned in the mission. And so I established that at the very beginning of the discovery call to see for sure that there's going to be a future before I get too deep. And then I show them what we call our foundation to scalability plan, and show them, our case studies, show them that we know now what works and what doesn't work. And this is the way that it needs to be done. And now that we've specialized in this and we have a system, most of the time, our clients are kind of there with their eyes wide open, and their their mouths are just sort of, their jaws drop, because they can't believe that they didn't start doing this earlier in their business, because they realize how crucial it really is. So I have to say, it's never really been a hard sale. When we discovered that this was so necessary and so important, and such a huge game changer and real differentiator, for them to be able to scale the business. As soon as we really figured this out and figured out the system, and then we're able to express it and show it to people, it's been a pretty easy sale, because they really need it. It's just so needed. And so I don't know if that answers the question, but that's kind of how it usually.
Once you kind of work through your process, and you get the core values clarified, and the organization, the leaders have sort of bought off on, okay, yeah, this is exactly what we need to do. How are you practically implementing, working the culture down through the organization? What are some of the practical things that you guys, tools you use to help, seep the culture down through the organization?
Sure. So the first phase is establishing the brand. So we're going to get their presence online. We're going to give them all the things they need to now establish their external audience presence, really, in terms of who they are, now that they know who they are. And then the next step is to start laying down the infrastructure internally. So we'll create an intranet. And this intranet is going to be able to now unite everyone across all states, all units, all brands, because we're going to be feeding it with tons of content and information and training and resources and updates. And that really does help to unite everyone across the country. And that's just one thing. We also do leadership training. We'll do leadership conferences where we're helping them to pull that event together. And I'll even go and speak about the identity and branding and their culture. We'll take them sometimes on on leadership retreats, and we'll do some leadership training there. We make sure that we are infusing the culture, the core values, into every stage of the life cycle of the employee. So we want it to be in the onboarding process. We have what we call a culture cultivation manual. And this is something that is really crucial to be able to start little by little, recognizing these are all the crucial points where culture needs to be trained, and we need to put it up in front and center in front of all of our team members all the time. So you may have swag where the icons and the brand messaging and the culture is there. It might be a part of your employee recognition program. If you embody this core value, you are going to be rewarded. There are lots of different campaigns. It's a little bit customized. It needs to be customized for every single restaurant group. But at the same time, there's certain things that just absolutely have to be done. I think having this infrastructure of this intranet and having the communication throughout the organization, that training, and then the employee recognition based on the core values is very, very helpful. And then, of course, if you do events where it's the perfect opportunity when all of these leaders come for their conference to get trained as well. So every single time that we are able to put the core values up in front of them, in every single moment, whether it's onboarding, whether it's their leadership training courses to get their team members up through the ranks, And all of these different moments, as long as we are constantly training core values, the goal is that one day, and I don't think we've accomplished this yet, we're getting closer with every single restaurant group. One day, it doesn't matter, there's absolutely no warning, anyone could walk into a store and actually ask any single employee and they would give you the right answer. So that's the goal.
Well, I'm happy to tell Irfan, I'll be that guy at all of his wing stops. So send me the quiz I need to go ask, and I'll start going ask all the wing stops and be the secret shopper for Irfan.
Exactly.
You're a business owner. Our bulk of our listeners are business owners. What are the opportunities, struggles, hurdles in your business you're dealing with? What's kind of keeping you awake at night in the sense of trying to problems to solve, opportunities, ceilings to bust through? Yeah, what are you working through right now?
I think I've recognized, and I think I'm just going to speak on what is top of mind at the moment. I've recognized over the last year and a half that I've been through, personally also going through a challenging experience, and noticing that this is sort of because your personal things will kind of bleed into your your leadership, right? And so I've realized that an area that I need to work in my life, and then also in my leadership and in my business, is knowing when it's time to have the hard conversations and to draw the line. Because as a person who is so empathetic and compassionate and wants to continue giving chances and supporting people and giving them opportunities and helping them to grow, which is very much at the center of our culture. At the same time, as a leader and a business owner, I also have to be firm, and I have to know when it's time to say, okay, third chance, and that's it. In terms of with a team, but also with clients.
Yeah.
I've had to fire a couple clients because I need to do what's right for our culture, for our dynamics, for our stress levels. And so knowing when to have those hard conversations, knowing when it's time to say, this has been nice and it served its purpose for a while and I learned so much and you learned so much, but now it's time to move on. I need to get better. It's something I've been working on getting better for the last few years. And even obviously my personal, it's amazing how I've noticed it really is a pattern in my life. I just now finishing this last spring a divorce and same situation, giving chance and not knowing, okay, by staying longer than I should, I'm doing more damage to the family or I'm doing more damage to the business. And it's time to, know when it's time to pull the plug. And I think that's an area that does keep me up at night. That's an area that is something that I know is my area of weakness that I have to work on. It's very much, I'm a textbook INFJ personality type. It is very much absolutely textbook INFJ problem.
Well, I'm incredibly grateful for the courage and the transparencies. I know our listeners are. We had a conversation this morning as well, Emily, with a person and a leader, and his humility. And how old is Steve?
Probably late 60s, early 70s, late 60s.
And he shared something that I thought was really powerful, that he would often take an index card, and on one side he would write the 4 or 5 things that he felt like he could be getting better at, doing better at. The other side, he would map out his current net worth and was it up or down, which I thought was interesting. But every tremendous leader, and we had this conversation, because you lead an organization and people report to you, does not mean that you know it all or have it all together or cannot learn. It's the complete opposite. It's that lifelong learner. So your professional work and courage and transparency to understand what are your blind spots. You have them, Scott has them, I have them, 100%. That's how you grow your organization. And frankly, the respect of your team will just, for you and the organization, will skyrocket. So for you to be understanding that and going through it, even to be transparent, you're helping someone right now, literally listening, say, I have been unwilling to speak out loud where my blind spot is. any leader who's unwilling to say that's a blind spot is got a lot of work to be done. So
They probably got a lot of blind spots.
and it probably has a lot of blind spots.
Yeah, it's interesting because in leadership, you really do, and that's why I encourage our clients and also my own leaders in the team. You have to have moments where you disconnect,
Yeah.
absolutely disconnect, and reconnect with yourself, with God, the universe, with your mission, with your business, with your dreams. Because if we don't do it and we just stay in the constant busyness and we don't have these moments where we can recalibrate, we don't realize that, wait, we've changed a lot in the last year or 5 years as a leader. Like, we're not the same person we were in the last year. And it's very important as leaders to continuously disconnect, reconnect, and recalibrate so that we can continue to lead and improve. And if you do it as a team, it's even more powerful.
Because everything is with the team at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
What's next for Culture Agency? What's next for Emily? What does growth look like for you all the next 1 to 3 years?
Well, it's funny because the timing is it's providential having this conversation at this moment, because we are in the process of absolutely restructuring entirely. And it has been an exercise in patience and kind of learning to accept and just let go.
Yep.
And not have a control, and then realize, this is what's best for all of us. We decided that Freeman Network's going to become, which is another reason why it was founded, was to be this great sort of network of freelancers to support the freelance life and to support people and help bring them work and give them tools and resources and support and training and a great environment to work, which we do virtually, but we're very intentional about it. We decided that Freeman Network is now going to become a recruiting agency, and we're going to be taking care of our team so that can funnel into supporting us in the agency below. And Culture Agency, we're now really going to be focusing in a lot on franchisors as well, because we've been doing a lot of prototyping and supporting the franchisor as well. We have our brand manager is also an architect, and she has her architecture and interior design team in Mexico, and we've been prototyping and helping create prototype manuals where we help determine the brand concept or determine the name, figure out how we're going to differentiate and position them well in the market against the competition. But then we're going to build the brand identity, build all the interior design and the architecture for the restaurant. And in this manual, also give them the SOPs for the grand opening for each unit, and also training on culture. And so all of this is happening in this prototype manual, so that when they've succeeded with the first one, they have something that they can take and say, okay, this is how we're going to do it again with the next one and the next one and the next one. And so it's something that we've just enjoyed. We're good at it. We love it. Yeah. And it's something that I've kind of been missing. And so now that we're seeing that this is actually a really good fit for us, it is nice to be able to not only just support the franchisees, but also support the franchisor who's building a new concept. And so we're breaking out the Culture Agency into these two departments, and we're hiring, and we're getting ourselves set up because a lot of opportunities are starting to come. And so we're in this growing pains and building stage at the moment, getting ready for what's coming.
I think that makes a ton of sense, just because, you mentioned earlier just the importance of the design and the aesthetic, and kind of where you started your career with Vibe as an example. Like, you don't have a lot of license to change the way a Wingstop looks. But if you're working with the franchisor, you've got a lot of opportunity to put some creative into what they're trying to do in all their locations.
Exactly.
It makes good sense.
How much of your work, Emily, is directly with the CEO, founder? Is all of it working with, him or her? And my hunch is, I don't know if this is just different because you and Irfan have known each other a long time, or my sense is it's probably all your clients. You really end up in a coaching relationship with them. Is that accurate? And why? Why is that? Seems like those worlds are starting to morph together.
Absolutely. It becomes coaching. There's some days where I feel I'm doing more business coaching than I am branding. And the reason why is because it's very much about their identity and who they are as a leader. In order for this to really scale, you have to be in touch with your vision and where you're going. And so I definitely am there coaching and working with the CEO, but the majority of the time I'm working with the COO or the HR director, because that's who's going to help us to really cultivate the culture and operations. So for the most part, yes, I'm very much involved with the CEO at the very beginning, the founder, to establish the brand, and then we'll touch base and have higher level discussions for future vision type projects. But who on a day-in-day basis, when it comes to just getting all that has to get done on a monthly basis, it's mostly COO and HR who really need to partner with us to help cultivate the culture. But when it comes to franchisor, absolutely, it's the founder, it's the CEO, for sure.
You kind of had the shadow over your face, and no one could know who you are, but you were going to speak to 100 CEOs. So what would you say is the most common blind spot? If you could just speak as freely as possible, what's the most common blind spot you recognize or see in CEOs, founders?
I think a lot of it has to do with aligning your why in life with your why in your business, which is actually my purpose in life. My purpose in life as a human being is to help other people. And this is not just in QSR or with these clients, but to help everyone in my sphere of influence, my children, my neighbor, my partner, whoever, help them to discover who they are, what their purpose is, their identity, and to live it and share it with the world. And if you're not able to do that, if you are kind of living a double life, especially as a CEO, it is very, very, very hard to maintain your energy over time. You will lose motivation, you will lose that inspiration. And so if you are able to connect your why in life with your why in work, now you can sustainably scale and continue that mission going forward, because you're not living a double life. Your business doesn't feel like work because you love it, because it's aligned with your purpose as a human. And so I would say that's probably, and that's not just for QSRs, not just for our culture agency clients, but for all of our clients on the Free Me side as well. And for everyone in my life. It's so, so crucial to get out of the living a double life thing and live in the sweet spot, which is aligning your why in life with work, your why in work. And I think that if people were more intentional about that and sort of living in this, what the Japanese would call ikigai, and having this purpose in their life, when you're working such a huge percentage of the hours of your life are dedicated to work, it doesn't feel like work if you are aligned with your mission as a human and you love what you're doing. And so if these CEOs can all figure that out, then now this business is truly scalable. You'll have the energy to continue sustainably doing this for many, many years. If at the other end of it, your legacy is very much tied to your purpose that you were uniquely made for.
Wow. That's incredible. Scott, you have anything else?
No, I love that. And I guess the question I have is a follow-up. I mean, we can certainly wrap it there, but the follow-up question would be, why do you think so many CEOs, or people in general, but CEOs in this context, feel the need to live a double life or a dual purpose? What do you think the impediment is for people to not be more aligned with who they are and who they were created to be?
Society, culture, everything around us, the indoctrinations that all of us are a part of from birth, even our parents in the back of our mind, are all telling us, and there's some story that's being told inside of your head, what you are supposed to be doing, whether it's what you actually feel is aligned with your unique design or not. A lot of times we just follow the paycheck from the moment we get out of high school. When we're told, you're supposed to go to college and, go get a degree in this because here you can make money. And a lot of times we just could pursue something because our parents told us to, our teacher did, our college guidance counselor, society. And a lot of times people will end up having this midlife crisis because they didn't choose something that actually aligns with their passion and who they are and what they were designed for. And then they find themselves living this double life, and they're not satisfied or fulfilled in the future. But they're stuck now. And in this country that happens. We are so stuck because we're slaves to all of our possessions, to our mortgage, to our car, and we feel this obligation to continue and to continue and to continue. And then you see this epidemic of stress and all of the things that come from the stress that all of us are living in because of the pressure that we're all under. And so it's very normal. It's very common for people to pursue a career based on what someone else told them was what they were supposed to do because they had to chase that paycheck. And a lot of times we aren't intentionally designing our life the way that we should to align who we were made to be with our career. And so I think that if people were intentional, I'm training my children, and that's one of the top reasons I homeschool them. So they can reach their potential from a young age. They can start knowing these things early so they never get to that point, and they can pursue the right path for themselves pretty early. And so I think that if people knew this early on in their career, especially entrepreneurs, they wouldn't lose steam, they could maintain that energy, and they could really scale their businesses if they really are aligning it with what they love and who they are.
Well said.
It's incredibly well said, Emily. And I just want to affirm you. I see a lot in Irfan and Vibe, your influence, even talking to him today about how they think about people in the triple wins. If you're listening to this, you'll want to listen to Irfan Lalani and the Vibe podcast, as well as obviously Emily's that you're listening to. But you're making a difference. The Culture Agency is making a difference because this thought process, this alignment of really what his purpose wants to be is clearly kind of mapping to some of that coaching that you are providing him, and I'm sure many other leaders. Emily, beyond grateful for you. Thank you for making time. And till we get up there and go surfing on the Jersey Shore, we'll look forward to it. Thank you for making time for us.
Thanks, Emily.
Of course. It's been such a pleasure.
You're awesome. Go get them. Good luck on the move. Thank you.